Ducks, who took care of business in Los Angeles. I was sitting there watching that game, and maybe you are saying kind of the same thing as like you were saying, like, I don't really know what Oregon is. We'll find out next week against Ohio State. And maybe some of that is just the fact that the quarterback play is so good and the receivers are so good that we really don't. Like, you have to be tested at all levels. Yeah. And they really haven't been.
No, every team that they've played, and this is the weird part about it.
I mean, they've had a few tests, but not like what Ohio State.
Boise State should have beat them. And Boise State, by the way, they hammered Washington State. Boise State's a good team, but I mean, if your goal is to play for a national title, Boise State is not your measuring stick. So when you say from an athletic standpoint, is Boise State's the best team you played? Like, and Boise State probably should have beat you, with the exception of the special teams play. So, like, that's what I know. Oregon's not bad. Oregon's going to win 10 games based on just the sheer talent alone. I mean, sheer talent beat Boise State. And sheer talent, they steamrolled Oregon State. Oregon State's not a bad team. But when you look at the gaps between Idaho, Boise State, Oregon State, UCLA, dude, UCLA that's a bad roster. It just is. It's a bad offense. And it's a bad team, period. And so when you look at that, like, that's why I said I don't know what to make of Oregon. They have NFL guys. It is a roster that should be able to compete for a national title. And I'm nitpicking, but I'm nitpicking because this is being held to a different standard. We're talking about them the way we're talking about Georgia, Bama, Tennessee, Ohio State. We're talking about those teams. And if I'm just take all the stickers off the helmets and I look at who's played the best, Oregon has not played like those other teams.
No, but what I was getting at was that I think quarterback play, I was sitting there watching the game going, I wonder if we are taking quarterback play for granted at Oregon at this point.
I could see
because
that.
I think it kind of masks what you're saying. When Dylan Gabriel is so good and so efficient and the receivers are so good.
Yes.
It's like you can't really tell about everything else, right? And those, I mean, they said, Gabriel's going to be the all-time leading passer in NCAA history,
yes,
barring an injury.
Yeah.
I don't know how we feel about that since it's going to be 5+ seasons. Like if he, so
it's a little bit of a compiler, but the guy's great.
But he's going to pass Case Keenum. He's what is he like 13,000 away from Case Keenum? Or 3,000 away from Case Keenum.
Yeah.
And then he's got to pass. They showed the stat. He's got to pass Timmy Chang and Landry Jones.
Yeah.
And he just passed Graham Harrell. So, I mean, the guy's prolific. Mm-hmm. And then you had Bo Nix, and you had a couple years of Bo Nix. Mm-hmm. And before that, I mean, Anthony Brown, I think, might have been before that. But before that, you got Herbert.
Mm-hmm. This has some really good quarterback play.
And in between there may have been somebody I'm missing. But then you had Mariota. Like, I wonder if Oregon, when was the last time Oregon had bad quarterback play? There's a question.
Oh gosh, I mean, bad quarterback
where
play.
It's like, ooh.
Yeah. I mean, the Pro Cup, it's been a while since you've had bad quarterback play. Herbert's freshman year, and then he came in, that was a little rough. They got blown out by Washington, but yes, there has been consistently good quarterback play for a long, long time, to the point where I do think we take it for granted. We assume that the next guy up is going to be great. And, Dylan Gabriel, for anyone that thinks that Oregon's offense, if you want to ho-hum it, or if you just say Oregon hasn't played that well, my man is completing 81% of his passes for 1,100 yards. He has 9 touchdowns and 1 pick. Dude, he's
unbelievable.
He's been great.
And he, short of that pick 6, I mean, I don't know. He's just reliable. Like yes. that. Yes. I don't worry about that guy.
No.
I don't worry about that guy next week against Ohio State.
No.
I don't worry about the receivers. It's the other, it's you got to be a complete team, but yeah. I just wonder if the quarterback, we're getting such good quarterback play with Nix and Gabriel in back-to-back years that it's really hard to tell just how good they are.
Well, and I think
or bad.
I think from a skill position standpoint, just overall, and I don't know if the backs, again, you want to talk about being spoiled, there has been some phenomenal Oregon running backs, and it feels like they're there every year. And Jordan James is a really good back, and they actually have a couple of them, but obviously he's the main guy there. Outside of that, because I don't know if those backs are quite what some of those others are. It's a good group, but I think it's maybe a setback from some of the stuff they've had. But when I look at their tight ends, when I look at Dylan Gabriel, and I look at the wide receivers, you can easily say that this is the best skilled offensive group that they've had during this run.
Well, I don't think it's close.
It's stupid. Tez Johnson, by the way, could easily be the Big Ten Player of the Year. There's just so much talent across the board. And maybe we don't talk about Dylan Gabriel the way we do some of those other players, but if he beats Ohio State, he gets this team where you think it can go, that's going to change real quick. It's just silly. I don't think the O-line is what it has been in the past. I think the running backs have taken a step back, and the defense, again, to be determined, because outside of Boise, which Genty played real well against them, they haven't really been tested because the teams they've played have had crappy offenses. So, but right now, like the defense against UCLA, like if you're handing out grades, I mean, it's an A+ across the board for the defense. UCLA did nothing, and the only thing I'm going to nitpick is in the run game again, and it was a bad field, but the running was tough yards. I still don't know if the run game is consistent enough to get this thing completely cranked when you play against better teams, because Ohio State, I think they gave up 14 to Marshall. And outside of that, I mean, they're giving up 7 or no points. Again, they haven't played a bunch of people either, but they look like an absolute juggernaut too. So this is just going to be.
Well, this is why we need those big.
This is why we need the big games.
We saw Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, and it sucks that we have to wait 6 weeks into the season, but it'll finally come because
But
Michigan State will offer no resistance.